Hi everyone, welcome to The Bridge. I'm your host, Kira Young, and you've reached me on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We are also simulcasting, as usual, with Real Liberty Media, and we're also simulcasting with People's Internet Radio tonight in Ireland, and this afternoon on the East Coast, and in the early afternoon on the West Coast. How are you doing, everybody? It's the 28th of January, 2017, and the resistance is in full force. It has begun a long time ago for some of us, but for others it is just beginning, and it's pretty exciting. Last weekend there were quite a few events that went on, and I had the opportunity to meet a lot of new people as well as see some old friends, and I'm pretty excited about what lies ahead. We have a couple of really good guests tonight. My first guest is, I met him with the International Indigenous Youth Council. He's with the Chicago chapter. A lot of the Youth Council made it to D.C. for trainings and protest events that were going on. As you may know, there was far more people protesting than there was at the actual inauguration. So, why is that? Because many people are now becoming aware that we're living under fascism. It wasn't quite as obvious to I would say the left under Obama, but it was just more covert, and now it's overt, so people are catching on, and there's a lot of protests going on. Last night there was a big protest in Minneapolis protesting the Dakota Access Pipeline. As you may know, President Chump, that's what I call him, he signed some memorandums. People are calling them executive orders. There's not really a huge difference, but he signed two of them, and one was to push through Dakota Access Pipeline, and the other was to revive the Keystone XL pipeline, which many people fought to get that to the point where it is. It's pretty disheartening for many, but it's also, again, lifting the veil, so that at least is a good thing. In our show so far, we've been encouraging people from Standing Rock who still want to stand for the water, who still want to do their water protection and go on nonviolent direct action, to join the camps that are popping up all over the country, many in the South. But things are still finishing up at Standing Rock and really changing rapidly every day. Before these memorandums came out, the tribe was asking people to leave, and Cannonball District also voted to have all the camps closed. Now that these memorandums have been signed, there's been some changes, and the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe chairman is leasing land for all of the Cheyenne River Lakota who showed up to Standing Rock and still want to stand and still want to fight this Dakota Access Pipeline, who the company has not stopped building at all. They haven't stopped. So, but I wanted to give you a taste of some of the other activities that are going on in the country. So that is why I scheduled the two guests that I have. My second hour guest is Clavo P. Martinez, who is from Frontera, which is a frontline water protectors group down in Texas who are fighting the Trans-Pecos pipeline. And I have another, Stephen, I have another number that I'm going to go ahead and shoot over to you for the first hour guest.
All right.
And let me just put it in here. His name is Carlos de la Vega, and okay. No, I guess.
You gave me two numbers. Is it the second number?
Geez, I don't know. No, it's not. Hang on one second. My sound keeps getting weird on me. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and plug it in here so you can get him. All right, so we'll see if we can't get Carlos in here to say hi and tell us what he's been up to. He's right now he's in North Carolina. He's been with the Eastern Band Cherokee, so he can tell us about it once we.
We don't have it. We have it, but he's from Berkeley. Hello.
Hello, Hey, Carlos. Welcome to the bridge. We're on the air.
Oh, hello, Kira. Nice to be on the air. Nice to be with y'all.
So I was just giving folks a recap on events that have been happening over the past week, the resistance, and how it's just really getting stronger under Trump, because the veil is lifted now. It wasn't quite as obvious under Obama, the fascism that we've been living under, and that's getting stronger. But now it's getting obvious to a larger group of people, and a lot of people's networks of resistance became a lot larger over this past weekend in D.C., and that's where we met each other.
Definitely.
So I just wanted to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself the way that you're comfortable introducing yourself and how you want to represent yourself, who you're with.
Most definitely. Cool. Well, the way we introduce ourselves, first we speak of our parents. My mother's name is Viviana Teposteco. She comes from Azochapan, Morelos, Mexico. My father's name is Ricardo de la Vega. He comes from Coahuila, Mexico. My name is Carlos. My indigenous name is Tochlitzi, which means rabbit. And my family's all from Mexico. I'm first generation Chicago, born in Chicago in a little village, south side, or near the south side, next to Pilsen, for anyone that's been out there in Chicago. I grew up my whole life in Chicago, been to Mexico quite a few times, met my family out there. And recently I've been connected to my roots, which is Mexica people down in Mexico. And been going, ceremony, and I'm learning about my tradition. And I believe that, I work with the International Indigenous Youth Council. I met them at Standing Rock and became part of their membership out there. And then was able to get a lot of people from Chicago to come and support Standing Rock since August. Been there since August, back and forth. And we started a chapter in Chicago, so now we have an International Indigenous Youth Council chapter in Chicago, as well as Denver, and Standing Rock, and we're starting one in California, Texas, and New York. That's all on the way. But that's who I want to represent. I don't speak for them, but I just want to let people know that's who I'm working with. Recently, in Chicago, I work with organizations, the Little Village Environmental Justice Organization. We're posting on this 100-year-old coal power plant, bringing in new green space into our community, because we're way under the line of what green space per capita that people need. So my work since maybe 2011, been working with the community, working with the land. So with that said, I feel that the real fight is in protecting the land and the water, because that's really what's under attack. Our resources, that's where everything comes from. All the capitalism, corporations, they frack, they mine, and then to put it in a poetic way, they rape the Mother Earth, they rape our mother, and that's how they make the money off of us. And no one gave them permission of these lands. They just come and they write a paper saying these are our lands, or we're taking over these lands, or they make war to take over land. And the real reason why they take over land is to take what's inside of our mother, to take these minerals. And that's what I realize now, that a lot of times we fight this revolution and we're fighting a superficial level. But once we realize our connection to the land, once we realize that we come from the land and we will go back to the land when we die, and our spirits, goes deeper than that, then you're fighting the real fight. Of course, a lot of these superficial things are important as well, and to a degree, like, for example, racism and all that. very superficial for people that are racist. Are very superficial. They base their racism on something that's not real, and you got to address that too. I believe so. We're addressing those issues too, but we're the focus on the earth and the people and traditions and culture. Because I also believe that our culture and our roots and our ceremonies are under attack as well, because they know that if we become spiritually strong, that we'll live our lives different. We won't be scared. We won't need the police. We won't need the companies to govern our lives. So right now we're kind of like under a spell where they govern our lives through making us feel that we need them, that we need to be taken care of, that we need our electricity to come from them, that we need to run these cars on oil, which is not true. But they made us believe it. And we were born into it. My generation, we were born into this. I'm 29 years old. And it took me a long time to learn these things. It was I didn't learn this in school. I did not learn this in college. I learned this through my life experience, people that were more awake than me, teaching me, and learning through. Actually, right now I'm in a Cherokee reservation up in North Carolina, meeting some of my friends, our family out here, and learning a lot through their ceremonies as well. And the ceremonies, a lot of these traditions that are thousands of years old, they teach us a lot too, and they teach you how to be a warrior. So
and they reconnect us to our source, and back to our old ways and to the earth. And I would say that at 29 that you are aware of these things, that you may be ahead of the game compared to some
what I
people.
say? I have some youth that are 19, 18, 20, and I tell them, and they're already connected to what I'm connected to. And when I was 19, 18, I wasn't at their level, and I tell them, you're already a step ahead of me. You might be younger, and you might think I know more, but when I was your age, I wasn't doing none of the stuff you're doing. So every generation keeps getting better. And that's one of the things that one of my ancestors taught me. Every generation has to get better. We have to teach them to be better than us. And it might be after we die, because I'm getting better every day too. I'm learning more and becoming a more honest person. But when the youth get to my age, I want them to be better than me. So that's something that's part of the battle too, you know? Like sometimes we get dragged into this battle and we forget about our family, we forget about ourselves and taking care of ourselves. But that's part of it too. But of course they agitate us. We're always agitated in different ways. They want us to react aggressive and violently. And that's one of the things I see a lot in the front lines, in the protests. A lot of people react violently, you know, because they're mad, and I understand that they're mad. But we will never win that way, you know. And even if we do win that way, then our new world would be based on a violent uprising. Which, if you look at history, has always been like that. And we want to change history. We don't want to keep being in those cycles. So that's why it's very important to find your roots. And one thing I learned also at Standing Rock is that everyone's indigenous.
Yes.
Everyone, even European people, they have their indigenous roots. They were the first to be conquered, if anything.
Right, exactly. You know what's really funny is that everything that you've said so far has been mentioned multiple times on my show and previous shows. So we're really totally on the same page. I did want to ask you about your people, the Mexica. Are those the people who are commonly known as Aztec? Mexica. Yes. Okay. Yes. I wanted to. I just made that connection when you said Mexica, because I remember watching some Aztec dancers at a powwow, and that's who they introduced themselves as, the Mexica. And I remembered it when you said the word. So just so for those of you who didn't know, that's a lot of times indigenous tribes have and through history get known as through. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
A bit. Yep.
Oh, okay. And through history get known as a different name. So I just wanted to make that clear. Right. And the other thing I want to go a little deeper with you is about what you said about race, how it doesn't exist, as that's been a central theme of mine as well. Is that we don't actually, race doesn't actually exist. There's the same genetic variance between people who are supposed to be in the same race and people who are supposed to be in different races. There's only one race, the human race, and all the only differences there is culture and language, and those culture and language is to be cherished and nurtured and protected, And when we focus
Yeah.
on race, we forget our culture. We allow our languages and our traditions to be lost when we're focusing on race that doesn't exist. Like you said, this false thing that doesn't
Yeah.
exist.
It
Um,
doesn't.
yeah, it really, really doesn't. We're all related. Like the code of people teach us that we're not only all related as human beings, but every form of life on this planet is related.
The plants, the
So,
animals.
and that is, yeah, and that to truly feel that and know it and believe it and practice it, it keeps getting deeper and deeper and bringing you back to the source. Because you're right, we're under a spell, and we've been living this spell for a long time, depending on who you are.
Mm.
So, one of the things that you told me when we met was that growing up in an urban environment, there was gangs and things like that. You had these little epiphanies that, wow, this isn't normal. This is not the way we're supposed to live as human beings. So I wanted to go a little deeper into that and just get an example of where you really truly felt like there must be a different way to live. Like maybe somebody showed you another way and you really felt it.
I believe that going back to like gangs, one of the gangs that's prevalent in my neighborhood is the Lion Kings. And the Lion Kings in Chicago, they started as a group, kind of like a youth group. And what they did, a lot of the police that were in Chicago were like of Irish and other European countries, and they were the first. You know, they were mistreated first. You know, the Irish, Polish in Chicago, they were looked down upon because they were the new immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, over a few years, they started educating themselves and getting better jobs. So by the time that the Puerto Rican and Mexican communities came to Chicago, the Irish were mostly, a lot of police were Irish. So then they did exactly what the other Europeans did to them. They started oppressing us and treating us like we were lower than them. So there was a lot of racism going on in Chicago to our people, the Puerto Rican, Mexican, Cuban, and Latino, Latino people, or what they call Latino. And the police would beat up our dads. They would beat up people. They would rape women. The Navy men in California would fight the suits just because they were Hispanic or Latino. Those labels I don't really like, but I'm using them just so you can understand. And the Lion Kings, like in Chicago, you see a lot of gangbangers in the corner. They post up. But now they sell drugs, they gangbang. But back then, standing in the corners so you could watch the streets, and if there was police trying to hurt your family or other people of European culture trying to beat up your dad or your grandpa, the young man would step up and fight them. So it was a protection of the community. As well, they had soup kitchens, they had ESL classes. A lot of the first Lion Kings were like, people that were getting educated, going to school, and they worked along with the Brown Berets, the Young Lords, the Black Panthers. They were connected. And when the government came down on them, started locking up, murdering a lot of the leaders. A lot of these that are now gangs, they were introduced to cocaine and other drugs that back then we weren't really using. And when it became a money thing, a lot of the gangs shifted from being protectors and educators of the community into the business because money was coming in, and they lived very poorly. It was the struggle. So in this, I'm not educated all the way into how these drugs came into our community, but I'm pretty sure that we didn't have any laboratories, or we were not growing cocaine in Chicago. And it obviously came from Colombia and other countries, but they had to, I believe, and I read some things, and I can't say they're true or not, but I read things saying that there was people in the government, in different bureaus, that were helping for these drugs to come into our neighborhoods, because they were coming into the suburbs, they were coming into our neighborhoods. And even if there wasn't the government bureaus or departments bringing that in here, and it was still drug lords or something. But when those drugs came into our neighborhood, that's when a lot of the groups changed. So when I was growing up, we were attracted to the gang life because it was like a family, a union. And me and my brother, my older brother, we got into that. We grew up doing those kind of things, negative things, violent things. And that's all we knew for the culture, because when I was growing up, I really hadn't gone to Mexico, so I didn't really know my culture. And in Chicago, we weren't Americans, we were Mexicans. And in Mexico, we were Mexicans, we were Americans. So we didn't really have an identity. So the gang culture kind of, gave us a home. But obviously, things we were doing, they were filling my heart. We felt bad. And it wasn't till probably going to Mexico that really going on a farm and working with my uncles and working with the land and working with animals that I felt this happiness, this connection to the land, to the spirit. And that was my first, I was like 12, 13 years old. That was my first connection. And then growing up, I got went to jail one time for like 2 months for a misdemeanor. And in jail, I had a lot of time to reflect and just think about things and that. And then things that I had read about history, I started putting things together. And it's like you got to be the change from your mind, your spirit, and your body. So it's like it's like breaking a lot of different chains. And I would say it was a book, it was a song, it was one of Tupac songs, a book that I read by Leonard Peltier, a person that I met and told me these words that I will never forget. And there was many people, some of them were strangers, some of them were my family, some of them were friends, that told me a sentence or a word or put something into a perspective that really made me change. And that's how it kept rolling like that. It was just following the spirit, going the right direction. Sometimes I would stumble, sometimes I would go back to my old life. And we're human. We make mistakes. But those mistakes, once you learn from them, they propel you to keep going. And I would say right now, at 29 years old, I feel I'm in a good place. I'm not making the same mistakes again. I'm learning. I'm okay with the mistakes I make. I don't shame myself. And I just gotta keep moving forward because now I'm a warrior. And I'm not a soldier. I'm a warrior. I'm not a game banger. I'm a warrior. And my job as a warrior, my duty is to protect my people, protect our culture, protect the land and the water. I'm not worried about getting a job and having a fancy car and all these things that are superficial. I'm worrying about, right now we're in the middle of the revolution, probably the beginning of the harshest part of the revolution, with Trump in office too, like you said. This is bringing people together, making people really show their true colors. And they show the colors that I'm showing as a warrior.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so even people that we're sympathetic towards the cause. I don't know how, but there are a group of people that were sympathetic towards the No DAPL cause that for some reason voted for Trump. I don't know how, but it did happen. Who are now like, wow, he really was serious. A lot of people didn't take his rhetoric seriously. The anti-Muslim stuff, they were like, oh, he's just trying, no, he was very serious. Now there's people, refugees being detained in New York City, and there's a big protest going on now in New York City about that. And then, there's, I don't think he was kidding when he talked about wanting to register Muslims. I think it's going to be very difficult to actually get that done, to make that happen. I think it'll be difficult for him, but I don't think he was kidding.
No, he was not.
Yeah. And today,
people don't take it seriously. I'm sorry,
yeah, I saw an article today where one of Johns Hopkins' top psychologists diagnosed him as a malignant narcissist, which I've been saying all along, that he's a malignant narcissist, which is different from your average NPD, which is, narcissistic personality disorder, which is bad enough, but it means that he doesn't have a conscience, and he never will. You can't grow one if you don't have one. So the majority of people in the world, 90% of people in the world, do have a conscience, and so they know when they do wrong. But there are some people that are damaged enough to where the conscience no longer is there, or it never was there. But there's no moral compass to go by. So anything goes for this guy. Anything goes. Anything he just sort of thinks up to do is fine. And anything that he says is true, whether it's true or not. If he says it, it's true to him. So that's what we're going to be dealing with. And we'll see the White House implode because of it. There's no way for the White House to maintain itself or to function in a way that it has in the past with somebody like that in charge. because what's going to happen is that his staff will try to protect him from his own disorder, and then he will be narcissistically injured by their trying to protect him, so he'll strike out at them.
Yeah.
And that's why the whole Twitter phenomena is going on, because he cannot stop himself from getting back at people that he feels slighted by. And that's not a true leader, and we know it. But under this spell, when we're under this spell, we mistake pathology for leadership abilities. And the real leaders, like, who really have real leadership skills, will take a bullet for the people who, they are, have common objectives with, and whose people who are following them will also take a bullet for them. Like, real true leaders are under attack in this country. They're under attack in every federal agency. That's why you're seeing a resistance going on even with federal employees who are being gagged and silenced by the current administration. Science is under attack. Not only are these agencies out there gagged, but they're destroying data on climate change. The administration is destroying data on climate change, and they're not going to let the EPA do anything. Not that it was doing anything before, but so those who are on the fence or who just wanted to keep their nice lifestyle are starting to see that we're all in the same boat here. I can hear everybody in the background.
I'm sorry, give me 1 second.
Yes.
Yeah, hello? Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I took out in the car where to travel somewhere.
Okay.
But no, I hear you. To be honest, I'm not involved a lot with politics. Mm-hmm. I've always stayed away from them because I really don't believe that change is going to come through the politicians, because their studies are not. They don't study like professions that are going to help people, like agriculture. They're not scientists. They're talkers. They're studying in business. So that will never help the people. So I really never got involved with it too much, just till recently, because I work with an organization now. I've been following, I've been reading, and it's like you said, like Donald Trump, he is a narcissist, and he doesn't have that in his brain, that sympathy for people. He's going on what he believes, and nothing else is going to stop him, and he shows that. But that's just the state of America.
Right.
The state that America could vote for a president that is like that, who has, like, it's just obvious that he is not a good person, that he doesn't care for the people, that all he cares about is business. Like, as soon as he came into office, he took away, I was reading online for, I forget what the website is called, but it's like the official website of the White House or the presidency. He took away veterans' rights, or like the veterans' help. Mm-hmm. He took away a lot of pages that help people. And he did that within the first days in office. He signed the go-ahead on the Keystone XL and the Codex pipeline. So his first orders of business are not to help the people. They're to push his agenda. You know, he's giving the green light on the wall and deporting immigrants, on the whole identifying the Muslim people and all that. So, like, I don't need to study politics and get real deep into scientific studies to understand that. I see that, like, this, you don't need that, all these studies to figure that out. It's just obvious. It's plain obvious. If you're a human and you have a heart, you'll see that.
Correct.
And my stand on that, like, I have people. No, go ahead. Hello, Kira?
So what I was going to say was that let's go back to talking about your connection to the land through working with the land and plants and food, and how that, because that's pretty central too. In my own personal journey, it's been a long road to realize that you actually can be better off growing your own food and making less money than making a bunch of money to try to afford organic food. Like you actually you actually end up that your time is better spent actually working the land for yourself than going out and getting, so once we realize that, things sort of come into play, and groceries becoming extraordinarily expensive and going up so much over the past 4 years. The price of groceries has gone up, by about almost 30%. You get less and less for your buck when you go to the grocery store. Yeah.
Have you ever heard that phrase? There's a famous phrase that says, "More money, more problems. More money, more problems." And that is very true. The more you have, the more possessions you have, the more you have to protect. The bigger house you have, the bigger security on, the bigger your taxes. And people, I believe, and I was even part of that people that I believe that the more I had, the more happy I would be. And I got to a point where I did have things that I wanted, all the nice things that I wanted, and I still wasn't happy in that way. And then going back to working with the land, right now, my last job in Chicago, I was growing gardens for schools, growing gardens for community centers, starting, heating the land and growing this food. And there's just way more benefit than just eating good. The benefit is that when you work the land, is therapy. You spending a few hours in a garden or around plants is very therapeutical for a person. You're also connecting to the spirit of the plants and all the insects that are there, and that's healing. You're healing the land. Because every time you're working the land and you're doing it, I'm not talking about large farms where you have rows and rows of tomatoes. I'm talking about gardens and trying to grow the way that nature grows. Like we always try to mimic nature to make a garden successful. You grow flowers in there to attract the beneficial insects that are going to come and pollinate these vegetables. The flowers are going to give you vegetables that are going to heal the land as well. So not only are you feeding yourself, but you're also feeding these insects. And these insects help the environment in their own way. You start seeing the connection of the plants, the sun, the water, the land, the insects, the animals, yourself to the land. And what's better than that? Like you put time into it. And I have I'll give you an example. I have a bed that's 4x4, raised bed. And if you plant things in the right way, you get so much vegetables and fruit and herbs, medicine, that you can't even eat yourself. You end up sharing with everyone. So with a small space of land, with the right techniques and growing in the right way, mixing in your herbs and your flowers, there's an abundance. The land is always abundant. There's this lie that they say, like, we're overpopulated and there's not enough food and there's a food shortage. That is BS. That is bullshit. Forgive my language. But that's bullshit, because the land will give us everything we need if we treat it right. And it'll feed everyone. There's enough space for everyone. So that is just another tactic fear. Oh, there's not enough food because they have it in reserves, because they're not sharing it the right way. Because restaurants and all these places throw away food, because they don't sell it, they can make money off of it, they'll throw it away. And that is the real problem. There is enough, and the land gives enough, but we're just not treating it right.
Yeah, and we would not be here if the earth could not support us being here. We wouldn't exist. Right. So that's part of the spell is lack, right? Which is created by the elite, or as I call them, the psychopaths in charge. That it's not an illusion of lack, because people really do live in lack because of our distribution systems, which are unjust, and because of government policies that keep people in poverty. That sort of injustice, the economic injustice, the violence of poverty, all that keeps us in the spell, and on both sides. So those living in poverty, those who are kind of sort of out of it, those who've gotten pretty far out of it, and so it's those that who have gotten to that place, like you said, they have more money and more problems. Their part of the spell is, maybe someday I will be a millionaire too. That's just as much BS, right? As there's not enough. Yeah. Because you're never going to make it into the elite. There's us and them. That's it.
Exactly. All they do is they'll hire up the middle class and make other people feel a little bit good.
Yep.
You know? They'll raise that poverty line up a little bit, and then they'll bring it on. They play with it. You know? It's a game. It's for them. It's a game. Politics is the art of manipulating society.
Right.
And some people are really good at it.
Yeah, they make those folks who have more money and more problems think that they're paying for people to just sit around getting food stamps. When the reality is that the vast majority of people who are on food stamps actually work full time, but still can't afford everything that they need because of these companies like Walmart and the big companies that have taken over all the mom and pop type of operations where people take care of each other. Those smaller scale businesses and employers. It's because of that. People are really paying for corporate welfare is what we're paying for. Those who pay taxes. Yeah.
So just think about the salary of people in that have government positions keep rising every year. There's statistics that show this. They keep rising every year. CEOs, corporation owners, they keep rising. They get paid more every year while the people stay poor. But I wanted to say something about this manipulation. When I was going to school, I never felt good in school. I'm from the Chicago public schools. And there was always a bell ringing to make me go somewhere. And in the board, you always had the bad kids and the good kids, and you want to get that gold star. And all of that is manipulation of competition against your brothers and sisters. And one thing they were telling me about was that the person who designed the school system, the Chicago public school system, the person that designed the Chicago public school system is the same person who was designing factories, like the people that work in factories. We were being trained in schools the same way that they train factory workers. I worked in factories before. If you're working in a factory, there's a bell that rings. You have to ask permission to go to the bathroom. You have to meet certain standards. And there's always someone in charge, and they know everything. They write. And that's what CPS was for me when I was going to school. So we're being manipulated since we're young. They're training us to be a certain way. And if you look at Native American history, a lot of the youth, they were taken away from their parents and put in these boarding schools as well. And they couldn't have long hair. They couldn't speak their language. And it is a system that's manipulating us since children, stripping us of who we really are. And now we're born into the system because our generation are now being born into the system and being forced to go to school. If you didn't go to school, your parents go to jail.
Right.
You know? So I that's the kind of thing that I look at and that I realize.
Mm-hmm. And even now that they have things like homeschooling, and there's certain standards you have to pass for that. Well, did you graduate school?
I graduated.
That's what they say in the, you have to fill out this paperwork to homeschool your kid. And they ask you, well, did you graduate? So if you don't have a degree, then they question your ability to educate your own child. Yeah.
It's interesting because you and me can have this conversation because we understand these things, Mm-hmm. But trying to have this conversation with someone who has not began to decolonize their mind, it's interesting because even like you think like, okay, well, if we don't have these institutions like taking care of us and this education, how do we get educated? How do we get our things? It's this is the part that is very important. How do you jump from being in this society to being more self-sufficient? And that's the thing. We need to start learning, what do we want to educate ourselves in? What do we value as an education? What is knowledge to us? What is wisdom? So we need to start restructuring our standards or our qualifications. Like, to me, someone that could hunt or fish or filter water, that is important for us to eat. Someone that knows our garden, that's what's important. Someone that could share oral story, not someone that could pass tests and all that. So that's a really hard jump to make. Yeah. That's a really hard, because it's scary. People are fearful, and some people really have sympathy for the water protectors, for people in the revolution. but they have that fear of like, okay, well, if we do, let's say if Trump does go out of office and they, like, what do we do? How do we take care of ourselves? And that is the work that we need to do. The education of people, and saying, how do we want to live? What do we want? How does our regular days gonna look like? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yes, there's that fear of the unknown, and what we're here to say is that we're living the unknown. We're doing it, and it's not as scary as you think it is. It's closer to real freedom. So we need more people to take that leap, so that we can get back to true freedom, so that we can have true sovereignty, and just we're all sovereign beings on an individual level. We're all born into sovereign. We're all born with rights, and to the government. There's another part of the spell is that the government will steamroll over our God-given rights, our Creator-given rights, and then they'll hold those rights up like a dangling carrot and say, "We'll give it back to you if you do this or that." Or, or look how wonderful we are for giving this back to you. Big, huge celebration, ceremony. And meanwhile, they're pushing through, legislation that's going to, steamroll over all life and kill us all, kind of, it's always a game. So we have to keep reminding ourselves that our rights are given to us by the fact that we were born, that there's no government that's there to give us our rights, so that's also another spell, because we keep getting trapped into it when we want to confront the system that's doing its best to oppress us, and then say, look, but you say we have these rights, why don't we really have them? And we point to their own their own documents and their own legal stuff to make our point, and it's a big circle. Yeah. So
I think in this conversation that we're having is that one thing that keeps reoccurring is that spell. And I like that a lot. Like, we're under a spell and we need to break it. People don't believe in magic no more. Or the word magic is very very mythical. But things are magic. Everything we speak is magic. And the people in power, they know about this magic, and they use it. They use it against us.
Yes,
I know it sounds very like magical and like fantasy world, but it's very real. Our thoughts, our prayers, our words, everything's magic.
Everything. And so even not even praying in the language that was forced upon you, that creates a different outcome or a different orientation to your life, the actual words that we're speaking. So they are, speaking itself is a spell. That's why, words, you call it spelling, what you say.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, we believe, I don't know, I think it's the same for the Mexica as the power of tobacco, for instance, this plant spirit medicine that tobacco has. And we use a lot in ceremony. Indigenous peoples of the Americas use tobacco. And for the Lakota, it's thought to take your prayers up to Creator. And I was taught years ago that for those of us who I was taught not to smoke tobacco habitually, but only for ceremony. And the reason being because it's so powerful. But for those of us who have taken it on and do smoke it habitually, to remember that its power to carry your prayers. And so while you're smoking it, to be praying every time that you smoke it, to make sure that you're praying instead of, gossiping or whatever, you do, talking shit, while you're smoking a cigarette with your friends. Like, you have to make each time that you smoke it a prayer, And then you actually find that you smoke less and less because of it, you realize its power and you don't want to overdo it. You know what I mean? So that was a really good lesson that I learned about tobacco and the plant spirit medicine that it has.
I've learned the same lesson. I completely agree with you.
Yeah. And so a lot of people who aren't familiar with Indigenous ceremony, they kind of think like it's all the same instead of how different tribes have like these different variations. There definitely is similarities, right? But there's also really big differences too.
You know what, I feel that they're the same, they just do things differently. But we're praying to the same creator. We're praying, you know, like we're doing the same ceremony. The water is life. We pray to the water to heal us. They're the same rituals, and like even across the world, they're the same rituals. It's just they're done different because of where we live at. The way the seasons are different where we're at. So that's you know that's why it's different. It's not because we're different people. It's because nature is different around us. The seasons come differently. Our language is different. You know, our needs are different according to our foods and all of that. That's the reason why it's different, but it's all the same, I feel. Even in Europe, the old ways, what they call the pagans or whatever, their ceremonies and traditions and their beliefs were the same as the Native Americans and Americans in South America and Asia and wherever you go, because we're all stepping on the same land or on top of the same land and under the same sky. It doesn't change. Just certain things about it change. But it's the same thing. Right. So we all live in this. We're all the same connection.
And our connection is not only a biological, physical connection, but a spiritual one. So it's a scientific, you know, it can be proven scientifically, basically, how we're all related, right? But we also know this on a spiritual level. So it's that knowing that reality within yourself kind of balances out the physical and the spiritual. And what I see has happened in Western culture is that we've put our false notions of what spirit is above. See, even our language, above the physical. So it's this idea that the physical is less than what is spirit. And then this whole false notion about what is spirit, right? But again, you go back, you go to your garden, and your garden and the plants will teach you that this is what you've been taught is false. Just by working with them, just by being with them.
Yeah.
Right.
Kira, so right now, I'm just going to give a quick update. I'm with Philip Irischel and Ephraim Montalvo. We're from Chicago and South Dakota. We're traveling around, talking to different people, talking to doing different interviews, talking to different youth groups. We're in North Carolina. We were in Virginia last. We're going out to Chicago, Denver, going back to Standing Rock. You know me, my life right now, I'm on the move. I'm traveling a lot. We're working a lot with people and meeting new people. We have Phyllis met his cousins that he'd never met. They're like 26, 19. My brother's 19. He's never met his Cherokee side of the family. So we're out here. He's also reuniting, healing. That's part of our work. And right now we have his family here. We're about to go out. I'm moving around. This conversation is beautiful. I just want to say that this knowledge that we're speaking about, that you and me are speaking, is becoming more common, more and more common. The truth is coming out to the light. And back then, people would have been like, "These people are crazy. They're talking crazy." But in this time and day, this is something that is becoming the norm now. The truth is becoming normal now, and I'm really happy for that. And I'm really happy that you have this kind of show, and that people are following, people are listening, and I'm speaking from my heart, from what I learned. I just want to leave it at note. I don't know if it's 5 o'clock yet, but they're waiting for me in the car.
Okay.
If you have any last questions or anything you want to ask,
just in any way that people can support the youth council and do you want people to follow on Facebook or to learn about what you're doing? Any last things?
Yes, please. We're on Facebook. That is one of our main forms of outreaching is the International Indigenous Youth Council. When you type that on Facebook, you're going to get we have a logo. You got the medicine wheel, you got the bird feathers, and then the mountain in the back. You're going to get 3 of those. There's the Standing Rock chapter, the Denver chapter, and the Chicago chapter. These are the 3 that are officially up and are recognized. If you want to help by starting a chapter in your city, or by having conversations with us, or sharing information, or like February 3rd, we're having an event called DOPE, Decolonizing of Peoples Everywhere, and that's going to happen in New York, Texas, Chicago, California, Denver, Standing Rock. We're all in the same day at the same time having an event. Go on our Facebook. You can check it out. Like our pages. Start meeting people. Feel free to ask questions. Just say hello. If you have a youth group in your community and you want to connect in a way, you don't have to be in International Indigenous Youth Council, but your youth group or even adult group or whatever kind of group there is, we could be connected. We could be allies. We could be working together because we're all fighting for the same. So link up with us. We're out there. We're doing our work. And my name is Carlos. You'll find me on Facebook too. Carlos de la Vega. And we're organizing. I don't know where this movement is really going to take us, but I know it's going to take us to being free for real. So I just want to leave it on that note.
Thank you so much. Give everybody a hug, and we love you. Take care.
Love you too, Kira.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, so that was a really good conversation. I couldn't be more happy to be meeting young people who are so awake and really working, moccasins on the ground. That's what the focus of this show is. The grassroots people who are doing the work that it takes to make the meaningful change that we need right now to truly live free, not this fake fascist freedom that's shoved down our throats as nationalism and patriotism, but real true sovereignty where we all live freely. Very, very excited. So stick around. We're going to have Clavo Pete and Martinez coming up next.